It's time for a book chat conversation this morning on Wake Up Nigeria. And for that, we have Oluwapelumi Awe, a public speaking coach with a unique approach to helping people become clear, confident, and impactful communicators. Today, we're reviewing his third book on public speaking titled How Kings Speak.
Yep.
It's so good to have you in the studio with us.
So good to be here.
You know something, this book, you know the kind of things they say about being small but mighty. This is one of such books. I told him just before the conversation started that I love his book.
Thank you.
I'll tell you why in the course of the conversation. But How Kings Speak, what influenced this book? What was it that inspired you to write it?
All right, so in 2022, I was invited to speak on a TEDx platform in Ondo City. And I spoke about the man, the mic, the man, and the men. The mic being our voice, the man being the person communicating, the men being the audience. When I was done speaking, I had a few persons run to me to say they liked the way I communicated my thoughts and they wanted me to help them out. So I figured I recommended some books to them, some popular authors to them to go get the books. And many of them said they've gotten the books, but still yet they couldn't find their way around how to communicate in a way that is clear, with charisma, and also confidently. And I figured it was just best I studied myself a bit and then put together something very small, Andy, that you could consume at once and could help you become better than you've always been.
So there are things that we call partners, and I dare say this book is a partner for somebody that is looking to being a better communicator. And that's what I found it to be. Let's talk about some of the content.
Okay.
Your cap and your gab. So that's actually the very first chapter in which you actually talked about certain things that I said this to you off air. I said this book is filled with things that I know, yet I'm reminded of because it's been a while since I employed many of them. It's actually great for a communicator. So your cap and your gab. For someone who hasn't read the book, what is that about, the first chapter? All
right, so the gap is spelled G-A-P, meaning that we all have a gap we have been designed to fill. And one of such tool is how you communicate. Your voice is a tool. If you deploy it well, I say every time that your words are your swords. Your words are your swords. You can use your sword to defend or to fight, all right? So the idea is that we all have gaps in the world that we have been designed to fill, and one of the ways to get that done is to use your voice. Because if you don't know how to communicate, you will walk like an elephant, eat like an ant. You will not be able to negotiate. Doesn't matter how powerful you look. Now the idea is to say that people judge you by how they see you come. But the next tool, the next item on the list that they judge you with is how you communicate. So you can see a fine guy, a fine lady walk towards a guy, he's amazed, he's blown away. And then he engages her in the conversation and then she says something that she shouldn't say, and then all of a sudden, our value drops from that moment. So how you dress can increase your value, but how you speak can bring it down. And that's why I said we all need to get to the point where we begin to use the tool that we have been given by God. Everyone has it. And there's a misconception that great communicators are born. They are not born. Great communicators are made. It takes a while to understand that you are the sender, there is the message, there is the channel, there is the receiver. To get your message to the right person, you have to take out yourself from the picture and understand that the most important items on that list are the message. You have the message, you have the channel, you have the receiver. Now, when you flip that to the other side, the receiver then becomes the sender, and that's when you now become important. So if we identify our tool and begin to use it well, we'll become better and we're able to fulfill everything we have been designed here. Everything we've always longed to do, it's possible if we sharpen what we have. You
have the gift of gab. And so, you know, earlier you mentioned the fact that communicators are not born. It's something that you build over time. How did you build yours?
Okay, so I've always been a church boy from a very young age. I would be the one to read the Bible verse. I would memorize the memory verse in church. I remember I was also the preacher during my children's day back in the day. And I started paying attention to myself very early, that it felt like people wanted to listen to me every time I communicated. Every time there was the need for somebody to stand up to communicate, I would be the one that would be recommended to go and, let me go and do that. And I never said no for once. So I figured it was something I needed to pay attention to. And when I got to that institution, it was a time when I started to represent my department. Every time they said, who wants to speak, I would raise my hand. And then during defense of projects, maybe we had a project, a team project, they would say, who wants to speak for us? Because I've been answering questions in class and they found out that this guy speaks. They would have me do it. And so for 5 years in school, I was always the one communicating. Now to even crown that up, my school needed somebody to go represent our school in national debate. And then they engaged us, all the debater, people who could speak in the competition. And I emerged as #1 there. So I figured it was something I needed to pay attention to, pretty much evolving into an MC and all.
Wow,
Yes.
that's interesting. Okay, so now let's talk about what makes speeches effective. I wanted to talk about your mind and your mood, but let's talk about what makes speeches effective. That's actually chapter 3.
I would tie that, your mind and the mood, together. Because your mind, your mood defines many things about you. It defines your tone. When you're happy, you speak excited. You communicate that to the audience. So what makes speeches effective? It depends on clarity. So there is clarity, there is character. Your character is what defines you. There is charisma. Charisma is how you express what defines you.
Clarity, character, charisma.
Yes. No, character is what defines you. Charisma is how you express what defines you. So we all have different characters. But how you define what that character is what helps your speech effective on many grounds. Like I said the other time, that what defines the effectiveness of a speech is not the sender. If you want to speak to a boy, a 5-year-old boy, there's a way you communicate to him. You find a 50-year-old man dancing before kids in class just to communicate something to them.
Absolutely.
And if that man is to speak to a group of CEOs, he speaks more confidently and relaxed. So what defines how you communicate is not you, is the message, the channel, and the receiver. And so when you understand the audience that you want to communicate to, you understand that what kind of character do I need to present at this time? And then what charisma do I need to lay on the table? Also, you want to, like I said, you also want to be clear with your speeches, because when you speak to, so I anchor events. And when I anchor, I used to anchor kids' party. It's different from when I'm anchoring a wedding reception.
Oh, absolutely.
And because my audience has now defined it. So when I'm anchoring a kids' party, I have to be clear with my words, because they will not react because they don't have something to refer to. But if I'm speaking to a group of elders, they can already understand what I'm saying. If I say, for instance, let's be upstanding. Let's be upstanding, for instance, to kids. They may not understand that. But this, can you all stand? And they will always stand. But if I say that to a group of CEOs, can we all please be upstanding? And then they want to stand up immediately. So that's how it is. You have to be clear. You have to have your character on ground. You have to be charismatic. You also need to understand the sense of humor. I wrote in the book there that everybody has a sense of humor. It's just that we don't deploy it well enough. Just like you have the sense to smell. Yeah. Right. So if you sharpen, I'm not a comedian. You don't have to be a comedian to make people laugh. We all make people laugh. Just that we have not learned how to sharpen that ability to make people smile. If you trace how you make people laugh, you're able to connect the dots. Comedians know this. They know what makes people laugh and know when to trigger that.
Wow. So you mentioned being in a class earlier. You know how a teacher would try as much as possible to communicate effectively with their students. And I found something really interesting, because you made reference to when you were teaching economics, and you talked about how you always came to class with the 3 questions to aid your teaching. Tell us more about that.
Well, so I used to teach in a school back in the day, and I've taught in quite a number of schools. It was part of the building ground for my career and all. And every time I wanted to go to a class to communicate with them, I would look out for a couple of things that, we call them icebreakers. Because some teachers get into the class and then they start yelling at students. So I find out the icebreaker that is suitable for that particular situation. Also, what also defines how effective you speak, which I'm going to connect to that, is also the person who spoke before you. So if a teacher who left the class had beaten them blue, black, and then they're all looking dull, I need to do something to get them on my side. If not, I won't get the kind of result I want to get. Because the goal of communicating is that the person you are speaking to understands what you are saying.
Absolutely.
And for as long as the person did not get it, it doesn't matter your energy, the charisma, you have not done your job.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I would most likely, just before the class ends, I would just go there, sit next to the class, just stand next to the class and listen to the way the teacher communicated, the voice. And then when I get in there, I ask them to stand up, walk to the person next to you, ask the person the simple question. And then whilst they stand to their feet to go around, do those, you find out that they loosen up a bit. Ask the person next to you, what's one thing, if I solve now, will get you smile. And somebody will say, I want to get me meat pie, get me sweet. I wouldn't want her to buy it sometimes. And when I do that,
everybody is excited. Yeah.
Excited. So you would need to break the ice. The idea of breaking the ice is there's the ice there, and you want to break it so that you are able to get the result you want.
You can't drink ice. Get through to them.
You can get through to them. You can't drink the ice that it is. You have to break it to get what it is.
My goodness, why did you quit teaching?
I still teach people how to speak publicly.
But you know, I'm actually saying this on behalf of students out there. Many teachers need to learn all of these tools you just mentioned, because children are being made to seem like they are not ready to learn, or they are being unreceptive, when all the teacher needs to do is to actually teach.
Definitely.
And teaching involves all of these things you mentioned.
Definitely.
Breaking the ice is something few teachers do.
Tell you.
And apart from that, being able to connect with students, you are going the extra mile, or you were going the extra mile by even standing outside the class to understand what their previous teacher has taught, so you know how to connect with them that day before the class starts.
Yeah.
And I find that really commendable.
Thank you.
I think you should be doing teacher training as well. No jokes. I'm really serious. So if it's something you haven't considered as a way to, you know, increase your income, you might want to consider it, because teachers do need to be trained. I must say, teachers do need to be trained. This is a very good book.
Thank you very much.
And I'm saying this as a communicator myself. It is one that would be like a companion if you're trying to be a better speaker. And of course, you also want to present yourself better. Thank you so much. I see this as a treasure, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your book, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this point, we'll take a break. You're watching Wake Up Nigeria. I'm going to reread this book. Stay with us. We'll be right back.